Hey guys, what's up? It's Skullflag44 here, bringing you another Hawk Ramblings for the Seahawks versus Packers preseason 2013, week number 3. As you can see in this picture, you've got Russell Wilson trying to escape another Wilson, so Wilson versus Wilson there. So I'm going to talk about my thoughts on the game, kind of some stories relating to the game, all that fun stuff. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully you guys enjoy. Just sit back and relax and listen to this. All right. So my sister wanted to go to a Mariners game this weekend because they were playing the Angels, and she was like, "Oh, Mike Trout, I've heard he's great or whatever." And I'm like, "Yeah, Mike Trout is awesome. Let's go to a game." And so it was either between Saturday and Friday. And Friday, Felix Hernandez was pitching, and Saturday I thought the Sounders game was happening then, but apparently it's Sunday, so kind of screwed that one up. So I'm like, "Oh, let's go Friday." Because that is going to be a better game, and we want to deal with the traffic of the Sounders game or whatever, because the Sounders game would be better to go to than the Mariners. So that'd be kind of a weird if you can literally see the stadium over there and be a better situation. So that wouldn't be very good, but then turns out it would have been fine. But I wasn't even thinking about the Mariners game or the Seahawks game. Then I got the tickets, and then I realized, oh, the Seahawks game is at 5. We're gonna leave like at 4, go get something to eat, then head to the game. So I was like, oh dang, so I'm gonna miss the games. How am I gonna figure this out? Like I can record it. I've got a recording system for it. I can do that. All right, I'll do that. I don't want to know anything about the game, though. I want to try to go into it with knowing nothing and seeing what happened, even though that was going to be really difficult. I thought I would give it a shot. So I was like, all right, the whole day, I'm just going to take, not even use my computer. I was like, okay, I'm already at 4 o'clock. I don't want to even check Twitter. Might as well take the whole day off from Twitter and stuff and just take a break that way. So I did that. Get down there. I'm able to avoid it. We walk into the restaurant. They have the game on, but I walk past it, don't see it. I saw some glimpses, but not the score. I'm like, all right, fine. Don't know anything. Good to go. Walk into like this team shop because my sister's like, oh, I want to get a hat there or something. So we're like, all right, walk in there. Realize they're playing the game, and then I'm like, nope, I gotta go. So I just walk out, wait for them to get done, and it was me, my sister, my dad, and so I avoided that situation. Got out of there not knowing the score. I was like, ooh, that was a close call. I heard Irvin brought down DeJuan Harris. I was like, all right, that's fine. I can know that. Then we get to the Mariners game, and they have the Seahawks game on the big screen. I'm like, oh, gosh. Like, this would have been excellent. Like, it's an excellent decision, but for the situation I was in, it was just awful because I was like, I want to know nothing, try to get through it knowing nothing. Look around, the people around us, they weren't talking about the game. All right, that's good. I'm able to avoid it, like just cover it up with my hand or paper or something like that. All right, know nothing. We get through it. They do updates, but then I'm able to shut my ears and look down and make noises, don't hear it. I get to it. I heard one thing. I heard Stephen Williams like 42 something, and then I heard people cheering. So I'm like, okay, the Seahawks are presumably doing well. And then I was asking my dad like, all right, is the game over yet or whatever? And he's like, yeah, it's over. And they were cheering around that time. So I'm like, okay, the Seahawks probably won, but that's not a huge spoiler or anything. I guess it is a pretty big spoiler, but it's something I can deal with, as I would expect the Seahawks would win since they take preseason games quite seriously. And then all of a sudden they're doing like it was like something Stannis night for like the sailors at the Mariners game, so they're like, oh yeah, thanking all our sailors here, and it's like, all right, checking it out on the big screen. And all of a sudden they just switch and flash the final score, and before I can understand what I'm seeing, I've already seen it. So I see it's 17-10, and I'm like, oh, come on. The game has been over for like a half hour, and I got through it. I was like, oh man, I think I'm going to be good. I heard nothing about the game since that, and I wasn't sure it was 17-10, but I was pretty sure I just saw it flash, and then I looked down, and it was like, dang it. I was so close. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it, but I almost did. But, I still watched the game last night. I stayed up to like 1 just watching through, and it's still a lot of fun. I actually didn't watch like the last 5 minutes because like the recording stopped, and it didn't restart like it was supposed to, but that's not a big deal. I don't really care. They were just running the ball, and it wasn't a huge deal. It was 1 o'clock in the morning, so that was fine. So yeah, so that's kind of my story about trying to avoid the score. And then I came home, got the recording. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have to watch this. Like I care too much about this. So yeah, so I'm gonna I've got some notes here. I'll just kind of run through. And I don't know. I guess I'll give my overall thoughts. Overall, I thought it was a good game for the Seahawks. They won the game. They played pretty well. There's some good signs, some things they need to clean up. Pretty much what you want a preseason game to be. It was a good road test, and they beat them. They got Graham Harrell cut from the team, so that means they played pretty well. Graham Harrell was the backup quarterback that came in for Aaron Rodgers, and he has been released, which is kind of brutal. He was, they wanted him to be the backup quarterback, and then he was awful. Vince Young was pretty good, and then all of a sudden he's gone. That's the cutthroat league that these guys play in. So first of all, I want to talk about Russell Wilson, who you're seeing on the screen trying to escape here. I just want to say he is fine. His first drive, he was on fire. He was just destroying them. They were blitzing, and the offensive line was kind of under stress as they weren't really ready for picking up blitzes as in the preseason that takes something to get down to game plan for. But Russell Wilson was just getting rid of it quickly, sitting in the pocket, getting out there. He was trying to escape. He did get sacked a couple times, which happens the way he runs out, and is one of those those balances. Most of the time he's going to be able to escape, but sometimes he is going to get sacked, especially when he's running around back way far back there like he likes to do, which is a big deal. But they've shown that it's not a deal breaker, as they had a nice play to Stephen Williams running across the thing, and they had a couple nice plays. It's one of those things that I think it's worth it in the end, because it doesn't happen very often. But yeah, first drive was awesome. Went down there, didn't get the touchdown, but they had other problems like penalties. The running game was kind of struggling the early going. They were trying to get through the, they weren't creating big enough holes, but then they really got going after that. So I thought that was fine. It was like, okay, he's on point, throwing it well. That's all you really need to see. And then he came out and he had an interception when it was just tipped, and it was just a really perfectly timed jump. It's not even like the guy just was holding his hands up getting blocked. He just jumped up and stuck his hand up. And I think it hit his helmet too. So it wasn't even his hand. But it was just one of those things like, okay, that's, just a good play. Would have gotten anyone really. And then, that was tipped up, intercepted. And then there's another one where he threw it down the middle and just kind of unleashed a throw. And it was like, whoa, this is going to be a crazy throw. He's throwing it like right at safety, it looked like, and it was picked off. But that's one of those where everyone was like, oh, wow, 2 picks, 11 for 17. Oh, that's not very good, not his best game, really, this was some of the he hasn't looked all that great or whatever. And it's like, dude, his first drive was awesome. He made one mistake there in throwing the ball long that got intercepted. And, that's what you want in the preseason. You don't want these guys just playing it safe, checking down all the time, racking up numbers, because the numbers mean nothing. You want people that, or you want plays that they're making plays that they can build upon, in the regular season. And Russell Wilson taking those risks, trying that out, seeing if that works, that's good for him. He's not the type of guy that's going to make those mistakes and not learn from it at all. If he's making those mistakes, he's not going to make it again in the regular season. And I thought his accuracy was fine. It's the things what you don't want to see is people that are just struggling, can't do the basic stuff that can't be fixed, stuff like that, or taking a shot that didn't work out. That's something he's going to learn from and be fine. And the Packers are a really good team. They're in Lambeau Field, one of the toughest places to play. Obviously not even close to CenturyLink. I really don't think any place is close to CenturyLink. Maybe Lambeau Field like in December or something like that, it would kind of get up there, when it's really cold, really tough. But now, it's one of the tougher places to play, but CenturyLink is just crazy. So it wouldn't have been very good if this was the regular season, his performance, but it's not. You can't equate the preseason regular season. There's a lot of things that can translate, but with a guy that's secured the job and just trying to see what he can do, get more from it, I thought he was fine and did a great job, and will be good to go for the regular season. And it's not really like you really have to worry about his confidence or anything. I think either he got a good taste of it, got a good played a lot, and then he's going to be playing the Raiders next week, which he'll just have maybe just like one series. I don't know how long they'll play him. Just kind of get him tuned up, and I'm sure he'll be fine there because the Raiders are awful. So that's pretty good for Russell Wilson. People on Twitter are always overreacting. It was just annoying. Like someone put him like on the negatives of the game, and it's like, oh my god, like, it just annoys me. It's like, yeah, he had his first game was way worse, where he didn't barely completed a pass and just didn't have any rhythm. He just made one mistake. Like he goes 12, all of a sudden he does make that throw, or that throw gets caught. 12 for 17. One interception on a play with a ton more yards. It would have been fine. It's like you can't really judge it off one play, especially when the play is picked off downfield, not even picked off, in their own end zone or something like that. So I don't know. He'll be good to go. Not worried about him at all. So the offensive line needs some work to get in the early going. They were able to wear the Packers down later, but early on, they couldn't get much going. They were having trouble picking up the blitzes, and they even brought extra men on. It seems like when teams know the Seahawks are going to run, they can stop them pretty easily, because I've realized Marshawn Lynch isn't the type of back that is going to get a couple yards out of nothing. A lot of people think that's what he is, but I don't think that's true. He's the type of guy that's going to get maybe 5 yards out of 2 yards. And, once he can get through that little push, if they just give him a little room and he's able to get his body moving, get himself going, he's going to break a couple tackles, push the players down and break some extra, get some yards. He's also not the guy that's going to get, it's really rare for him to get like 80 yards or, break like a big 50-yard play. You saw like obviously the Saints game where he just destroyed guys, but that was just, incredible. But he's the type of guy that's going to get, a consistent chunk of yards each time. But he needs to be able to get going, because when he gets bottled up early on and he can't get himself going, they're able to just surround him. And even that doesn't, it's not a problem with him. It just, he can't break through that, obviously, like no one could. So if they can just give him a little something, which they started to do later on, that's when he becomes really solid. But I worry that I want the Seahawks to rely on the run, but I don't want them to, sometimes you need the pass to set up the run. I think they need to be willing to do that. If the run isn't working, then I think it always will be able to work, at least at some point in the game. But you have to be careful as to when it, when it is working, and not try to force it. One thing that always annoys me is 2nd and 10. When you run the ball in 2nd and 10, especially when you haven't really established your run game and it hasn't gotten going, it's just like, okay, you're just setting up, you're going to get in like a third and best case scenario, or, best likely case scenario, you're going to get like 3rd and 5. And is that the situation you want to be in? Like, I don't know. I guess it depends on how comfortable they are with Russell Wilson and what third downs they want him to get into. But I don't know. The things I'm like nitpicking here is really nothing in comparison to what other teams are going through. The Seahawks are so solid, so good, that you have to focus on little things to worry about. So there's that. Robert Turbin shows some nice burst. He was able to really cut through the hole very quickly. And he was breaking a little more tackles than last time, still getting tripped up. He's just like a big guy. It's kind of like he needs to add a little more footwork and breakthrough. He's really close to being, a lot better back, I think, which he'll get maybe next season or later this season. He's a good in-between back from Michael and Lynch. Michael has like the big speed, big burst. I think Turbin might be faster, but Michael's more shifty and is able to more of a guy that can break big plays. And Lynch is obviously a guy that can run people over, and Turbin does a little of both. I would rather see him as the backup to Lynch and Michael. Michael's the second string guy, because I think Michael brings more versatility. And then if one of those guys gets hurt, then you bring in Turbin in, since he can do a little of both. But I think he's just a really solid player. But nothing. I mean, the Seahawks are so good that it's tough for these solid players to really stand out. Golden Tate looks like a really solid punt returner. I like what he does. Golden Tate has like this weird ability to just like make people miss. It's like one of those weird things that doesn't make, like, you see him playing, it's like, well, that's not, he's not that great, but he just is able to be like, do things that look like flukes every single time. Like, he had one punt return that was called back on a penalty, but he was able to kind of shift around a bit and then just cut through the seam. And I think that's something really special. Overall, the Seahawks special teams are going to be really good this year. I mean, if we had Percy Harvin, it would even be better. Maybe that'll be a nice boost later in the season, like I mentioned before, which could be huge when he's, coming off injury, but his legs are fresh, and ready to go. He has Golden Tate can slip away from tackles and find the seam. Overall, special teams will be fine. Jeremy Lane had a nice return. Jermaine Kearse had that nice return. I mean, I think they'll be set, and they just need guys that can be decent there, and then their blocking is going to be really good because they have so many great athletes. Steven Williams has shown up for a couple plays every game, but has looked great. I don't know, it's kind of one of those things where you don't even see him at all, partly because he's not playing too much, but then he'll just make these huge plays, and I think he's led the team in receiving, every game from what I can imagine, at least in yards, because he makes those long catches. But I can't wait to see in a real game where guys are getting more than one catch. If you get 2 catches, you might be leading the team because they have to throw it across so many players, and people only get so much playing time. So I'm excited to see how that translates and if he can really contribute there. Because from what I'm seeing, he just kind of, I know it's really tough to judge, but he's looked really solid. And that's going to be really fun because this wide receiver core has players for every situation. You've got Stephen Williams, the big, fast, not too much, not too shifty, not really a big hit guy. But then you have like Golden Tate, Doug Baldwin, some smaller guys that can get in there, take a hit. Sidney Rice is kind of your bigger, thicker guy. And then obviously once you get Percy Harvin back, you have that super shifty, crazy athlete game changer guy, which is going to be really exciting. So Christian Michael, I'm going to talk about him for a bit. He was just on a tear. He looked so solid. He was so fresh, especially from not playing last week. And the offensive line was doing a great job once they got, he was playing the last half of the game where you knew he was going to get like 10 yards. He was just breaking through and then just turning it. He was on fire, and especially the way he finishes runs. Like, he'll try to do some moves, but then if he has to, he just lowers his shoulder and just destroys guy, just runs him over. And that's one of those things that, isn't necessarily the best for the yardage. You only get a couple yards out of that, but you're setting a precedent and you're making these guys think twice about tackling you and making them really feel it. And that's a big part of it. He's so fun to watch. There's some talks that he might be inactive for a couple games. Like, he's definitely gonna make the roster, but he might not be able to make the active roster and be playing all the games. And I hope he can show up on special teams too, because he looks like he could be really special. And I'd rather see him play than Turbin, because he has that game changing ability. Not Percy Harvin level, but something closer to it than what the Seahawks currently have. Like I mentioned before, this was a good hostile environment test for the Seahawks. Lambeau Field's a tough place to play. I think this was a good thing for them to feel. I don't know. It was good for Russ Wilson to get sacked a couple times. Get that feeling there, not get hurt, not get too shaken up, not take too many big hits, but get that feeling. He also had a nice runs, kind of getting into that, taking a little more risks. Being conservative. You saw him on the first play of the game. He ran the ball up the middle and then kind of looked around, make sure no one was there. And then once someone got even close, he slid down. And I think you maybe make him, if it's the regular season, like mid-season or playoffs or something like that, you'll see him make like a cut there and even break it farther. And that's something that could be really special. So now going on to the defense, I want to say this about the Seahawks corners. I think they're all really good. I think Richard Sherman's great. Really fun to watch. I love seeing him or hearing him talk and all that sort of stuff. But I don't think Richard Sherman is head and shoulders above or better than the other Seahawks corners. He is the best, but their secondary is so good that I feel confident. Whoever the other team tries to throw to, I feel confident that they can make a stop. They're just so solid, and that's what you want. You want consistency out of your corners, because if you have one really bad corner, one really good corner, the good corner can take one guy away, but then they can just pick on the bad corner. But they've got Brandon Browner, who's a different type of corner, more of a guy that's going to be physical, set a precedent there, and strip the ball away. Richard Sherman really goes more for the interceptions. Then you have Antoine Winfield to cover the run. Then you have Walter Thurmond as a really solid third corner. They're just so solid up and down. And Richard Sherman made some nice plays. He got called for a PI call for just tripping, which is kind of stupid. But he looked good, and I think he needs to be test every once in a while to make sure he's not talking too much and getting too ahead of himself. And I think that was pretty good. But he's really solid. I just worry that he gets a little too cocky, but I think he's fine as a perfect mouthpiece for the Seahawks, and he's definitely fun to watch. Cam Chancellor looks like just such a force out there, just such a big, strong guy, and looks like he's so fast and make some huge hits, and just I think he's just a great player to lock up for the Seahawks. Just a really, really solid player. Not a guy that's maybe going to be the best player, the game changer guy, but a really solid player that can be built around really nicely. And other pieces can come and go, but he's going to be a guy that's can really set a precedent and be a really nice leader of the team. We still need to see more pressure and sacks. That should come in the midseason when they have their rushers back and everything. But I still want to see more of that. See a guy step up. I don't know. It's a lot of times, especially against Graham Harrell, that he was releasing the ball early, and I think when you think about you have to kind of balance the pressure and stuff like that, because if they're getting somewhere, it's tough because the Seahawks secondary is so good. Maybe they throw it away, and you really have to in the end you have to judge the defense overall. Are they not allowing points, because people say, oh, yardage is the big thing, but the big thing is points. How many points you're allowing because that's what matters in the end. And the Seahawks are, they're not going to give up no yardage, but they're definitely not going to give up a ton. But they're all about, bending but don't break, as they like to call it. So we'll see how that goes. There was a lot of stupid penalties, but it's preseason. That should be cleared up in the regular season. One of those things, that it just happens, and hopefully they can get that all straightened away. And we won't have to see it in the regular season. If, this is one of the things I definitely tolerate more in the preseason. If this was happening in the regular season, I would not be as happy. So, some preseason, I want to talk about some preseason mistakes and how they can be good. And, they can be fixed easily so they won't happen in the regular season. Like I mentioned with Russell Wilson making that play, this is something he's going to watch over and over again and fix. You don't want necessarily a flawless preseason. You want to have some trouble. You want to figure that out, and you want to go through, have some bumps that you can figure out while the games don't matter. So that when it comes the regular season, you should be, better to go. And I think that's good. But they're definitely, the Seahawks 3-0 have won 8 straight preseason games. They're built to win. They're setting that precedent there, which is good. And especially after that opening season loss to the Cardinals on the road, I think that, maybe they came in a little too confident, especially after the preseason. Now that they know they lost that first game, that's, maybe something they'll pay more attention to and not, try to look past. So we'll see how that goes, but I think they'll be good there. So the whole strategy of trying to strip the ball away has added a whole new element to the defense that wasn't there last year. Dan Quinn has done a great job teaching these guys how to strip the ball, and now they can intercept the ball, but even if they give up some plays, they can strip the ball and get it right back. I mean, the amount of fumbles they've forced has been ridiculous, and already seems like it a lot more than last year, obviously on a per game basis. But that's been a lot of fun to watch because these guys, they'll go in there for a tackle and they'll just try to club the ball away. And they're still tackling him, still doing that, but maybe they'll sacrifice, let him get an extra yard, but for a chance, to strip the ball away. And there's been a couple. They had the one strip, they had another strip on Winston Guy just on it as a hit, and then they had another one where it almost fell out. The guy came in and he just barely hung on to it. So the more you do that, the better chances you can get there, and that's huge because they seem like, I think it's like Charles Tillman who the Bears has that knack for it, and Dan Quinn's definitely teaching these guys how to do it, which is a lot of fun to watch and adds a whole new element to the team. And it especially works nicely when they're crazy strong athletes to do it. These guys are, just huge and super lanky. And, if they can learn that technique, they're going to be even better, which is pretty crazy to think about. Speaking of Winston Guy, who forced that fumble on a nice hit, he's going to be an interesting person to either cut or keep. He hasn't really showed up too much, but he has that playmaking ability, like forcing the fumble in the red zone, like I mentioned before. That they're going to have to wonder, do they want a guy like Chris Maragos who's more consistent, is able to make the tackle, maybe able to come in and fill in better and not allow those big plays, but not make those big plays? Or do they want Winston Guy who maybe he's going to allow a couple big plays, but make the big plays? So I don't know, especially they're going to have to look at their inactive things. I think Chris Maragos is a better backup if someone were to get hurt, but I think Winston Guy is a better player, if they were to add on to the team, they currently have. So balancing that, you have to do a little of both in different positions that they're going to have to balance. And then Jerron Johnson is a pretty nice mix of them, a solid backup, but also has a little playmaking ability, looks to be a solid player, and especially, has a chip on his shoulder ready to go, and that should be pretty good. Like I mentioned before, next week against the Raiders at home is going to be a lot of fun to watch, as it should be a good confidence boost going into Carolina. Hopefully it's not too much, but hopefully you guys can get rolling, kind of get that rhythm, and maybe get some momentum going into Carolina. Obviously they're 3-0 in the preseason, so they should have some momentum, but the Raiders are really bad, and we should be able to see a lot of guys step up and make their case for being on the team. These cuts are going to be interesting. They come up on Tuesday. Some teams have already started doing it, like Carolina. And so hopefully we, see the guys that are cut, aren't huge contributors that we already knew were going to get cut. Maybe we see some trades. When this 53-man roster happens here, it's going to be pretty brutal because some guys are going to miss it that are really solid players. So what we should be looking out for is hopefully seeing some trades. If we see any trades, that's a big bonus. Trades for draft picks, especially since we have so much depth there. But the more trades we can get, the better. Will Blackman made a couple nice plays, and he doesn't really have a spot on the team. So there should be some market for him. Hopefully we can find a team that values him and maybe down on the waiver claim, so they are willing to trade something for him. We'll see how that goes, but that should be exciting. As far as the defensive tackle position, which has been kind of some trouble after the Seahawks traded John Moffitt for Salinga, I think they called him. I don't think there's an N in there, so it's not like Ling, but the announcer said Salinga, so Salinga, whatever. He made a couple nice plays, and the Seahawks have shown that they want more defensive tackles. They're not really happy with their depth there, and I think that's the problem. Is like a lot of different guys have shown up there, but not like a couple really solid guys. They've just been kind of a variety, so it's tough to judge. None of them have been great. They've all been kind of decent. And it's not. I don't think it's really a position to worry about too much. Like they've got, Me Bain and Red Bryant, who's pretty much a defensive tackle in the defensive end position. As far as the big body guy. So it's not something. It's one of those nitpicky things that you have to worry about when your team's crazy good. So we'll see which ones they keep and decide to cut. One interesting thing to note is Tony McDaniel has looked really solid, but he's one of the older guys at 28. I think he's on a 1-year deal, so you'd ideally rather have a younger guy, but he's kind of stepped up, and you need those veteran guys sometimes to be in there and make a presence, especially if you're trying to make a run, and the guy doesn't cost a crazy amount of money. And then another interesting note on McDaniel is Tony McDaniel is Pete Carroll calls him Tony McFarlane all the time, or McFarlane or something like that. So he doesn't remember the name. So people are wondering, is that shown that they don't talk about him enough that they want to keep him, or is it just something stupid? A lot of people try to read into that. So I don't know. These cuts will be interesting. Hopefully nothing. I'm sure something. One good guy is gonna, or a couple good guys at least, are gonna have to get cut. Or actually, I'll take that back again. A lot of good guys are gonna get cut. Hopefully they're not. They don't cut a great guy and make a huge mistake. But we'll have to see. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I will see you guys next time.